It's 6 p.m. here in Korea. Welcome to our newscast. I'm Daniel Che. Let's begin with the headlines. President Park Geun-hye attends the opening of the Pangyo Creative Economy Support Center, which will house some 200 startups. There, talented individuals from Korea and abroad can gather to realize their dreams while helping to push forward a fourth industrial revolution. Seoul and Tokyo hold their first working-level talks since the December 28th deal on Japan's wartime sex slavery. The focus was on follow-up measures for that landmark agreement. It's the first case of Zika virus in Korea. A 43-year-old man who traveled to Brazil has tested positive for that virus. Health officials assure the public there's no need to panic, as measures to prevent potential spread have already been taken. We begin with some breaking news from Brussels. Two blasts have rocked Brussels airport, killing several people there. The incident comes just 4 days after Salah Abdeslam, the prime suspect of the November Paris attack, was arrested in Brussels, and just a day after a new suspect linked to the attack was identified. Scenes of smoke coming out of the airport's departure hall and people fleeing the building have been uploaded on social media. And according to witnesses, there are injured victims everywhere and many being taken away on stretchers. Authorities have put disaster plans in place, including the suspension of rail and traffic to the airport. Brussels also closed metro stations after another explosion was heard in Melbeek Station. The cause of the explosions is not yet known. We'll keep you updated in our later newscast. Turning to South Korea, a massive creative economy startup campus opened today in Korea's main information technology hub, the town of Pangyo, just south of the capital. And at the opening ceremony, President Park Geun-hye said the three-building complex is expected to work as a base camp, not only for Korean but also for foreign startups. Song Ji-sun tells us more.
Marking the opening of the huge startup support center, President Park started off by mentioning the Baduk or Go match between Lee Se-do and AlphaGo last week, in which the Google-developed artificial intelligence program won 4-1. She said with the advent of the fourth industrial revolution, Korea must come up with creative ideas and innovative products to survive, which is what her administration has advocated for the past 3 years, with a national chain of 17 innovation centers that are now fully operational.
이제는 기존의 모방형 경제 성장 방식으로는 안 됩니다. 창의적 아이디어와 신기술을 결합한 창조 경제를 일으켜 세상에서 유일한 새로운 상품, 서비스, 기업을 만들어 내야만 무한 경쟁을 뚫고 살아남을 수 있습니다.
Housing over 200 startups, the Pangyo campus will cater specifically to tech companies in the fields of Internet of Things, cloud computing, big data, and mobile. And with additional facilities for international exchanges also planned, the creative economy valley will be complete by next year.
스타트업 캠퍼스가 우리 창업 기업과 세계 시장을 연결하는 관문이 되기를 바랍니다. 우리나라의 우수한 스타트업 생태계를 국제사회에 알리고 해외 투자자를 연결하는 든든한 가교 역할을 해주기를 바랍니다.
In addition to helping domestic startups expand overseas, the campus will also seek to attract prospective foreign startups through a competition to be held in the second half of the year. President Park pledged full support for fostering the new center as Asia's startup hub, where talented youth from abroad can gather to realize their dreams of launching innovative startups. Song Ji-sun, Arirang News.
Hopes are high that the opening of the Pangyo Creative Economic Valley will help the government build up its much-aspired creative economy. And according to our Kim Ji-yeon, this new startup campus is where ideas coupled with ICT can be turned into new businesses and even create more jobs. Take a look.
The Creative Economic Valley in Pangyo is expected to help people turn their creative ideas into a real business. The Korean government has set aside nearly $35.7 million for the campus, which is spread across more than 17,000 square meters of land. The campus is divided into 3 main buildings. The first 2 are connected, and the whole facility is called a KICT Innovation Hub. It will be in charge of creating a database on Korean startups and their products for foreign investors and buyers. Almost each floor of the 8-story building supports a different center for startup activity. A few examples are the IoT Center, which will foster 27 teams of Internet of Things experts a year by partnering startup members with leading conglomerates. The Big Data Center will train 60 teams annually to support startups using the big data technology, while the Grand ICT Research Center will partner up with some 20 institutions to recruit highly trained young people. But the Tech Valley is not only about nurturing local startups. The third building, called the K Global Startup Hub, will seek to attract leading foreign startups and help them expand their footprint in Korea and other Asian countries. One of its inbound programs for foreign startups is the so-called K-Startup Grand Challenge, where 40 foreign companies will be given the opportunity to network with their Korean counterparts, along with special visa support so they can do business in the country with greater ease. Kim Jeon, Arirang News.
South Korea and Japan held working-level talks in Tokyo this Tuesday, the first meeting since last year's landmark agreement on the issue of Japan's wartime sexual enslavement of Korean women. Kwon So-hwa has the updates.
South Korea and Japan convened for working-level talks in Tokyo on Tuesday, their first meeting since they came to an agreement on the so-called comfort women issue last year. According to Seoul's foreign ministry, in their 13th round of talks, the two sides discussed follow-up measures on the December 28th deal on Japan's wartime sexual enslavement of Korean women before and during World War II. The meeting was led by the foreign ministry's newly appointed Director General for Northeast Asian Affairs Jung Byung-won and his Japanese counterpart Kimiro Ishikane. One of the main topics that were likely to have been discussed was the creation of a foundation with an endowment of 1 billion yen or $8.9 million through which the Japanese government will compensate the Korean victims.
The establishment of the foundation is currently progressing well with all those involved, including the Ministry of Gender, Equality and Family.
Meanwhile, a UN panel on human rights issues in Geneva on Monday praised Seoul and Tokyo's recent agreement, saying Japan has made significant steps toward apologizing and taking responsibility for the issue. The UN Human Rights Committee also pointed out, however, that Japan isn't doing enough to investigate its past human rights violations and prosecute those responsible. This amid reports Tokyo is denying its military's forced recruitment of women. It submitted a report to a UN committee last month saying Japan is unable to confirm evidence of coercion. It took more than 2 decades for South Korea and Japan to come to an agreement on the comfort women issue. 46 victims were alive when the deal was struck in December. Less than 3 months later, 44. Reflecting the urgency of the situation. Kwon So-hwa, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, representatives of the 6-party nuclear talks from South Korea and the U.S. have met in Seoul this Tuesday to discuss the implementation of sanctions on North Korea. Seoul's Special Representative for Korean Peninsula Peace and Security Affairs Kim Hong-kyun and his American counterpart Sung Kim discussed comprehensive measures to denuclearize the North. South Korean Foreign Minister Yoon Byung-se also briefly met with Sung Kim and the State Department's coordinator for sanctions policy, Daniel Fried, prior to the nuclear envoys meeting. The U.S. representative to the nuclear talks will continue efforts to build cooperation on implementing UN sanctions on Pyongyang when he travels to Vietnam and Cambodia this week. Turning to local politics, the country's political parties continue to feud over their nomination list ahead of a general election on April 13th. The ruling Saenuri Party postponed its regular meeting from this morning to tonight to give itself more time to mull over its nomination list in the midst of a fight between President Park Geun-hye loyalists and the opposing faction. One of the biggest questions is whether Yoo Seung-min, a key lawmaker representing the non-Park faction, will get a spot on the nomination list. The nomination committee had previously said it was waiting for Yoo to voluntarily withdraw his name from consideration. The main opposition party is going through its own struggle after Kim Jong-un said he is reconsidering his position as interim leader. Speculation that Kim put himself on the list of candidates for proportional representative seats sparked the current conflict in the party, with members upset and Kim refusing to participate in party affairs. And finally, the minor opposition People's Party released its latest set of candidate nominations. The nomination process will come to an end with the start of the 2-day candidate registration period on Thursday. Korea's Finance Minister Yoo Il-ho has pledged to focus on making the country's job creation plans more effective. Yoo made the comment on Tuesday during a fiscal policy meeting he held. He also said the government had adopted a system for assessing the effect of its jobs policies, particularly the financial support for its job creation plans. In a separate meeting on the same day, the finance chief urged other ministers to do their best to front-load their budgets during the remainder of this quarter. In order to counter the effects of plunging exports and sluggish domestic demand, the government had vowed to spend roughly $12 billion more in the first 3 months of this year than last. Korea has confirmed its first Zika infection in a man who was recently in Brazil. The health ministry, in a press briefing less than an hour ago, said that a 43-year-old man who recently returned from a business trip to Brazil tested positive for the virus at 6 a.m. this morning local time. The man had been in Brazil for 22 days and came back to Korea about 10 days ago. Officials said he began showing symptoms of the disease, including fever, rash, and muscle pain 5 days after he returned, but is currently in stable condition. He had been quarantined at Cheonnam National University Hospital in Jeollanam-do Province and will undergo another test this afternoon. Officials said, however, there's no need for panic as the Zika virus is not airborne and the mortality rate is very low. March 22nd marks the United Nations World Water Day. In tune with this year's theme, Water and Jobs, the South Korean government promised to support the Korean water industry as it sees it as an opportunity for market growth. Kwon Jang-ho introduces us to the event aimed at shedding light on issues related to limited water resources of our world.
Better water, better jobs. That's the message behind this year's UN World Water Day. South Korea has been commemorating the day since 1995, and this year it's holding the biggest event in the southern coastal city of Busan, with Prime Minister Hwang Kyo-an giving the nation's blessing. He also gave awards to individuals who have provided outstanding service in the water resources and environmental fields. To coincide with this year's theme of water and jobs, a water industry expo is also being held alongside the main event. The world's freshwater supply is limited, but global population growth and rapid economic growth in developing countries has meant the demand for clean water keeps growing. The current global water industry is worth around $600 billion, which is about twice the size of the global semiconductor market, and is expected to keep growing at over 4% every year. And the biggest areas for growth are likely to be in Asia and South America. The Korean government is therefore pushing for the development of the industry here to provide the country with new avenues of economic growth.
The Korean government will strongly support water companies and through that increase job opportunities. The government will also invest more in water industry research so we can develop the technologies to lead the global water market.
At the expo, not only are industry representatives showcasing their businesses, there is also a water and environmental industry-related job fair outlining the many opportunities available in the growing market.
Korea has advanced technologies and equipment in the field. As the water industry grows, we believe there will be more opportunities for Korean companies to enter the international market.
Korea is facing a slowing economy and record-high youth unemployment rates. On this World Water Day, the Korean government is turning to water industries to try and help revive its flagging economy. Kwon Jang-ho, Arirang News.
U.S. President Barack Obama and his Cuban counterpart Raul Castro held a historic meeting in Havana on Monday. The face-to-face started on a positive note, but as things went on, the two leaders clashed over some of the long-standing disagreements between them. Kim Mo-gyun fills us in.
President Obama sat with Cuban President Raul Castro for a summit on the second day of his trip to Havana. During the talks, the first between the two countries in nearly 90 years, Obama and Castro shook hands and agreed to normalize relations. However, as Obama addressed Cuba's human rights issues and urged for its democratization, Castro responded sharply, saying that his country met all international rights agreements and that the state provides good health care and high access to education. Nevertheless, Obama stressed the importance and the role of the human rights issue in developing their relations.
One of the impediments to strengthening those ties is these disagreements around human rights and democracy. And to the extent that we can have good conversation about that and to actually make progress. That, I think, will allow us to see the full flowering of a relationship that is possible. In the absence of that, I think it will continue to be a very powerful irritant.
In terms of business and trade between the two sides, Obama said much progress has been made and that they were actively negotiating on further opportunities. Regarding this, Castro demanded that the United States lift its 54-year-old trade embargo on the island and hand back the Guantanamo base.
The blockade is the most important obstacle for economic development and the well-being of the Cuban people. That is why removing it is essential for us to normalize bilateral relations. It will also be beneficial for Cuban migrants who want the best for their families and their country.
Obama replied by saying that the embargo is definitely going to end sometime and their agreement to improve ties will continue beyond his administration. On Tuesday, President Obama will give a speech to the Cuban people, meet some dissidents, and then attend a baseball game between the Tampa Bay Rays and the Cuban national team. Kim Mo-kyun, Arirang News.
That's it from us. More updates coming your way at 10 p.m. Korea time. Thanks for watching.